Welcome back to Storytime with Constantine. Yes, this is probably my favorite time of the day because I get to hang out with you all. Bring sassy Constantine back. Hope you guys are doing amazing. So let's just all get started. It is Saturday. I am hoping you guys are doing great. Hopefully not underwater like most of us are. It is not 100 degrees plus in Texas. We're just suffering from the apocalypse or, the monsoons or whatever it is that we have been under rain for the last 3 days. So somehow I feel like I'm paying for my sins. 90% of the time here in Texas, I feel like I'm paying for my sins, past, present, and future. I don't know what those are, but here we are. So hope you guys are doing seriously amazing, gorgeous. I have missed you all. I'm going to have some crazy confessions. It was supposed to be a really slow weekend for me, I swear to God. I was supposed to just chill at home, nothing exciting happening, and somehow all the things have happened. So I am extremely tired. I have missed like 2 posting this month. I was doing so well. I'm just gonna just so the goal is to work on just grace and all the patience and just doing the best that we can. So we're not gonna beat ourselves up. We're just gonna make the most of it. We showed up. Constantine's in the house. We're gonna make the best. My hair looks like it got hit by the 100% humidity of Texas. I happen to be struggling with one piece of hair that made me look like Dennis Menace for about 2 minutes. So here we are. So welcome to story time. We're going to be doing Cat Lady for today. And in case you were wondering, it is one of those days I don't even have a drink today. We're just winging it. Like we don't know what we're doing. Like it's day one. So we're doing Cat Lady, the Cat Lady special book one and the Cat Lady series. Because for the last couple events that I have done, Angela and the Silver Hair Gang have like stole the show. I don't know what is happening. Granted, her tagline is from cat lady to arms dealer. So let's be honest. It's gonna make you go, really? So disclaimers, I normally don't have trigger warnings. I'm gonna give you some today. It is dark humor. I was asked Thursday at the Atlanta Book Festival that I had the pleasure of going. It is amazing. So it's technically a chocolate party, so I get to hang out with all the amazing authors and incredible library. They're super sweet here in Texas, so I adore them. But I was asked, why doesn't a nice girl like you do happy endings? And I was like, I feel kind of offended. I don't know what to say about that, but here we are. So Cat Lady does have, I think, a happy ending. It is not a romance. It is a contemporary dark humor story, fiction, all the things. So for all of my people that come into my table said, I don't do fantasy. Cat Lady is usually the book that I send them to. While it's very woman focused in terms of the main characters, every single gentleman that has read it still loves it. So don't feel like you can't read it because it is female focused. Don't worry about it. You're gonna have a blast. So we're gonna do chapter one, maybe chapter two. Disclaimer, it does start kind of dark. She is definitely contemplating ending herself, just kind of giving you the perspective. The book has a very darker theme. So this is usually the book that I recommend for adults. It is definitely not my YA kind of collection. So kind of giving you all the disclaimers. So think about it that way. So we're going to do the Cat Lady special because Constantine's in the house and, he tends to promote Angela's books and his own stuff. And yes, because it's an old cat kind of day, it sure says a chains on my mood swing just snap. The bottom of the shirt says run. So it's been one of those days. It's been hot, it's been humid, it's been sticky, it's been all the things. So here we are. So welcome to another story time with Constantine. We're going to be doing today book one of the Cat Lady series, chapter one. Bear with me, by the way. Remember, I'm not a professional narrator. I'm just hanging out with you guys because I think it's fun. I also enjoy torturing myself by reading out loud my books and hopefully remembering what the story's about. So we're going to give you in. I do have a couple things. I'm pretty sure we have covered Cat Lady. So if you've seen it before, just be like, oh, DC has lost your mind. It's all good. So we're going to start and see what happens. And we're going to do chapter one. So remember, it's kind of dark. So bear with me. Here we go. The 45 or the pills? Why was it taking me such a long time to pick one? It wasn't like I had that many choices left. I decided this morning I was going to to end it all today. So why was I dragging my feet? I was broke, about to lose my childhood home, had no food, but plenty of bills, enough to wallpaper my whole house. To make matters worse, I was alone, depressed, and laughing stock of the town. Granted, it wasn't like Sunshine, Texas was a huge metropolis, but all 153 residents knew all about how my husband has left. To insult to injury, he quickly moved on with his life. I was replaced, or the popular term lately, upgraded, by a 24-year-old blonde who recently graduated from art school with a pair of double Ds. There's no way I could compete with that, even if I wanted to. I was 45, had no formal education, no career, no potential prospects for marriage. All I had left was my reputation of being a good Southern lady. Last time I checked, one's reputation didn't pay for milks, or electricity for that matter. Okay, Angela, make a decision. I had been telling myself that for the last 2 hours. Even killing myself was driving me insane. Just didn't want to be a hindrance anymore, a disappointment to my mother. I needed to decide. According to the internet, poisoning was the way most women did it. Did I honestly want to die slowly? To be sitting on the couch wearing this old nightgown and counting the minutes into death took me? Negative. That took pills out of the equation. Then it hit me. The decision was made. My trusty Smith & Wesson M&P 45 will do the job. I love this gun. So it was only fitting that I use it for it. It'll be a fast death and a clean one. I just couldn't be shaken when it did it. I have to be one shot straight through the mouth. Meow. Clyde complained from across the table. Clyde was one of my rescue's American short-haired cats. Clyde and his sister Bonnie were my only companions. Maybe I should give you guys the pills first. That way you don't end up in the pound, I told Clyde and Bonnie. Clyde and Bonnie sprinted away towards my bedroom on the left side of the house. Whoever said cats didn't understand humans, I never met mine. Fine. After I'm gone, just pray mother finds you before and not the cops, I yelled at the cats from the living room. They were not moved by my threats. Just don't eat my face if you're hungry. Get plenty of food in your own feeder. Meow, one of them replied. And the feeling was funny. Clyde would eat my eyeballs if he ever got too hungry. So random note, I do have this fear that cats eventually, when I had a lot of cats in the house, would eat my eyeballs. I don't know why. I always thought they were kind of like soft and mushy. I'm like, my cat Chincho would eat my house. If something ever happened to me, my eyeballs would be the first one to go. So obviously, because I have a very dark sense of humor, everything goes in the books. And P.S., when I first wrote this book, was meant to be seriously a romance. It was supposed to have all the things. As you can tell, it doesn't start with any of the things. So here we are. So let's see how this goes. So just bear with me, okay? Did I change my life insurance? Why did our mind bombard us with questions when we face death? I was pretty sure I had everything changed. The last thing I needed was to leave those two villains anything after my passing. Oh, wait, there was nothing left. The bank was getting ready to take the house, and if I didn't start paying on the loan I took out, I'd been stalling for a while. My life wasn't getting any better. It wasn't going to. I took a deep breath and grabbed the Smith & Wesson. I love you, Daddy. I'll see you soon. I said my last words to my dad and put the gun to my mouth. Ring! I froze. Was that the doorbell? On a Monday morning in early October, could it be anyone important? I took the gun out of my mouth and waited for the pesky intruder to leave. The last thing I needed was some stranger calling the police when they heard gunshots inside my house. Ring, ring. When are you leaving? I whispered, yelled to myself. Didn't have a choice. I had to go open the door. Otherwise, the person on the other side would just keep ringing the bell all morning. I dragged myself off the couch, my gun hanging from one hand. My bare feet slapped the floor as I stepped towards the door. Finger combed my hair. It had been one of those mornings and I hadn't even brushed my hair. Surely, I look even worse than I imagined. Southern lady would never open her door looking like that, but I didn't care. I'd be dead soon enough. So what difference did one more insult added to my already long list of failures make? Even though the front door was less than 20 feet from the couch, I moved slower than molasses dripping from a countertop. By the time I reached the door, the bell had gone off 3 more times. Planting in front of my face and opened the door. Yes? Hi, Miss Angela, said Julio from the threshold. He stood next to his brother Hector, who waved at me in greetings. The boys were fraternal twins. Technically, they weren't really boys. If I remember correctly, they were 17. But to me, he was still a boy. Julio was a sweet, well-mannered one who always had neatly combed short brown hair. Hector was a little rebel. His hair ran longer at the ends and he spiked it up into a short mohawk. However, both were both 5'5" with the biggest brown eyes I've ever seen. It was nice being able to look them in the eyes without having a kink in my neck thought. I wasn't exactly a tall woman. They lived down the road from me in a town trailer with their mother and older sister. We had less than 5 residents on Farmer Road Market, and I lived in the only brick house. The rest of the residents were single double wide trailers in really good conditions. Just passing by, one would never be able to even guess they were trailers. Hi, Julio, I said, then turned to Hector. Hector, hello. What can I do for you guys? The boy's eyes went wide from my bare feet all the way up to my unkempt hair. Normally, I carry myself well. I always wear my black hair pulled up in a shiny and professional manner, except today. Our mom wanted to know if we wanted to buy tamales today, Julio told me. Not today, Julio. Thank you very much for asking. It was the point of buying food. I wouldn't be around to eat it once they left. Tell Miss Anna that I said thank you for your everything. The Ramirez family was always so nice to me and such an amazing, beautiful family. I was always admire how Miss Anna pushed on, especially after her husband left back to Mexico. Okay, Julio replied, dragging his brother away. Life is not fair, Hector whispered brush against my ear, but I almost couldn't understand what he had said. And he continued, a little louder. I can't get a BB gun and crazy cat lady walks around with a 45? When did I become the cat lady? What will you do for one? I asked Hector. I took everything in me not to slap a hand over my mouth. And no clue what came over me. The words just oozed out of me. The boys went stiff. I mean with open mouth stares. Lady, I ain't doing no kinky shit for a gun, Hector shot out. I was afraid to ask what he meant by kinky. All I wanted was to get the grass mowed before my funeral. Hector, let's go. Julio dragged his brother away before I could say another word. I threw the door from my hand and kicked a shot, which was a great idea with no shoes on. Sucking a breath of my now stubbed toes, I moved back towards the couch. I reached a new level of embarrassment. I was the town's cat lady? Every town had one. And that was this one's town's. I shook my head and ran a hand through my wild hair. I needed to get this done. Soon. Beep, beep. What in Jesus was that? I searched the living room, finding the culprit at the sound underneath some magazines and books on my coffee table. Nobody ever comes by my house or calls. But today, everybody wants to make an appearance. God, if you're trying to tell me something, why don't you just send me an email? Oh, probably because I haven't checked my email in over a month. Beep, beep. The stupid phone wasn't stopping. I grabbed it with my free hand and checked the caller ID. Lord help me, it was my mother. If I didn't answer, she would either keep calling or she'd come over. Might as well get this over with. With a sigh, I slid the answer button across the screen. Yes, mother? I asked as sweetly as possible. What took you so long? Barbara Carter was a force to be reckoned with. A sound lady to the core. Even in her 70s, she was fashionable, elegant, and always to the point. I know you haven't had anything else going on. The Ramirez boys were at the door, I told her, sticking to a safe topic. Did you order tamales? She asked quickly. Not today, mother. I didn't need to explain why. That's a shame, but also a good thing. We're having lunch at the senior center, so come and join us. Mother's tone left no room for arguments. Mother, I got laundry to do. I needed to, at least. Angela, you have all day to get laundry done. Mother replied in her most authoritarian tone, which translated to me being in trouble. Get over here as quickly as possible. Before I could argue, she hung up. The woman always had to have the last word. I was 45 years old. I didn't have to be afraid of my mother anymore. I could stay home if I wanted to, but I was planning to end my life. Did I really want my mother's last memory of me to be this conversation? Even now, so close to the end, I was trying to make things easier for everyone else. Guess I'm going to lunch now, I thought with a frown. I placed the gun on the table and headed to my room to change. Bringing guns in the center was not a problem. We live in Texas, after all. However, living at home was the surest way my mother wouldn't get her hands on it. And in her crazy group of friends, I'd be doomed. All of them own a revolver or 9mm. But they always wanted more. Father gave me the last strength to make it through this lunch. I prayed to myself as I consider what clothes to wear. So that's chapter 1. You know what? We're going to do chapter 2 because you might as well meet the rest of the game. So yes, I did tell you, it does start really dark. So now every time I try to remember to promote this, I kind of have to remember that everybody doesn't come with a dark sense of humor. So I kind of have to re-pray. She's at as low as it's going to get in her life. This is as bad as it gets. She has considered all the options and she's definitely desperate. So this is the beginning of a fairly dark comedy. So I have to give you kind of the reverse. So not to leave you in such a sad somber moment, we're going to go to chapter 2 because I don't think I could do that to you guys. This just sounded kind of mean. So let's do chapter 2 and the Cat Lady special. And obviously, since there's obviously more pages to it, she doesn't do it. So that should kind of make people feel better, I hope. So let's do chapter 2 and then we can go from there, right? I made it to the senior center in less than 15 minutes. Sunshine was tiny, located in the middle of Cass County. By the way, Cass County is a rural location in Texas. Sunshine, Texas, on the other hand, it is not. I needed a tiny town, and yes, there are cities in Texas or towns in Texas. There's 150 people. I just needed something between here and Tyler. I needed something close to Texarkana. I needed in Cass County. So basically, I just created a town that's just kind of like 2 roads and like stop by and a traffic light. So that's kind of what you have. So in case you're looking for this one, this is not. Remember, this is not urban fantasy. I can actually just make up a town somewhere. So don't feel bad. But it is in Cass County. That should at least something real of the book. And the other locations are okay. So here we go. Sunshine was tiny, located in the middle of Cass County. The place was so small it didn't even have a traffic light. Okay, so it doesn't have a traffic light. I'm sorry. It's just tiny. Just kind of go with me. It'll be okay. I promise. In fact, most of us were excited when the city put on one of those flashing yellow lights in the main intersection. With one Texas highway that passed through our town, traffic could get a little messy. Unfortunately, we still weren't big enough for Walmart. You know you're tiny when you don't even have a Walmart. Just letting you know, this is a small town. If it's technically a town. It is a town. Yeah, we're good. The senior center was located right on Main Street. It was near the general store with the only gas station in town, the Baptist church, and the main cemetery. We have more seniors, or soon-to-be seniors, in town than any other group. Sunshine has somehow become this county's retirement community. The senior center was the largest building in the most modern. It also had become the community center. Hey, you have a bunch of seniors, why couldn't it be the community center? We're multitasking in this building, so here we go. The parking lot was full, but I found one empty spot at the far right side. The summer heat had finally dimmed, a blessing if ever there was one. Fall was usually a brief season here, and for the most part, winters were mild. In fact, colder days were virtually non-existent until January or February, and even then, they didn't last long. I wore a long dress with a pair of pull tights and a bun, which was perfect for the weather. I would like to say I got dressed up, but this was my normal outfit. Wondering eyes landed on me, so I ran inside to avoid all the people gossiping. But the mission failed miserably when Mother said, "Hi, Angela." I stopped in my tracks and nodded in greetings. "Mother, and her lady sat at the table opposite the entrance, which forced me to say hi to most of the people in the hall. I waved politely and avoided small talks. I knew I was violating all the cardinal rules in the South, but I just wanted to get to the table and hide. However, even when I sat down in the empty chair, I could still hear the rumors about me. Mimi waved at me from the table. Mother was the youngest out of all her friends, and that was saying a lot since she was in her 70s. Mimi was the oldest in her early 80s, and she still wore her bright red lipstick that brought out her shiny white hair. Next to her were Ethel and Florence. They were in their 70s and sisters. They were also out of control. Ethel refused to define as traditional and will wear slacks and cardinals. If the feminine movement had a leader, Ethel would be their first choice. Florence, on the other hand, was stuck in the 50s and still believed she was a pinup girl. Somehow, she managed to dress in that fashion and make it look good. I envy her courage so much that I even said it out loud. Hi there, ladies. Thank you for saving me a seat, I told the group as I sat down at the empty chair. What took you so long? Mother asked, the words rushing out. I had to get dressed, I told her, not making eye contact. And that's what you picked? Mother eyed my clothes. Angela, you look like something a coyote dragged across the woods. And why are you not wearing any makeup? What happened to your hair? Angie, dear, have you been eating? Florence asked me, trying to turn the conversation away from Mother's attacks. You're shrinking into nothing. Honey, ribs are not sexy. She inspected me with a careful look and didn't know what was more traumatizing, having a 7-year-old woman telling me that what wasn't sexy or the fact that she was doing it in public. What my sister means to say is, you don't appear healthy, Ethel jumped in. That is true. You don't look healthy, but you definitely don't look sexy either. Florence crossed her arms over her chest. All people were great, with their non-existent filter and all. It was amazing that they could say whatever they wanted, no matter if it was the most embarrassing thing in the world or not. Angie, have you ever seen those commercials on TV about those starving kids and all? Man, that is one sexy look. No, nobody does, because protruding bones are not sexy. I dropped my head on the table and prayed the floor would swallow me whole. Honey, you aren't still yearning over that two-time loser, are you? Mimi asked, and with her hand on my shoulder. Of course not. I lifted my head and looked at the table, because if I had looked up, they would know I lied. Angela, you're a terrible liar, Mother added. It's been 9 months since you divorced. You cannot continue to have Wayne in your house. She glared at me as she spoke. I'm sorry. The words came out louder than I intended, which had people turning and watching me. I counted to 10 in a lower tone and continued. Sorry. It's taken me a while to get over 27 years of marriage. I closed my eyes to hold back the tears that threatened to spill, just like they always did any time I tried to talk about him. You were miserable most of the time, Ethel jumped in. Sometimes you can do better on your own. Easy for her to say. She had never been married. I'm just glad your father's not here to see this, Mother said. And for once, I agree with her. Because he will have killed Todd by now. He drained your inheritance, let us support him for years, and now he leaves you? It looked like Mother's face had exploded on any minute. I just kept getting redder and redder with each tick of the clock. Angie, why don't you go get some food? Mimi said, saving me from the rest of the lecture. Joyce is catering today. So a quick note, when I wrote this chapter, obviously I don't know what I was thinking. Besides the fact that I think one of the best things about aging is people being very comfortable saying whatever they think. If you happen to have any of those old DS, because I have plenty in my life, they just say whatever they think regardless of the age. And they have a social commentary in your life. Angela's getting a taste of that. Is that commentary of, you're divorced, you should do better, you should do all these things, regardless of what Angela thinks. So this is one of those moments that we all have experienced, where family members are a little too helpful and want to give you too much advice. So in this situation, Angela gets to experience it all. and being extremely overwhelmed about it. The one thing I had a really fun writing is the concept of what sexuality looks like. What is sexy in our modern days? As a 7-year-old looking at, her pinup days, and she's like, yeah, you need a little bit more filling. And our concepts, even now today, when we're looking back at what does small look like in order to be like a sexy lady, should you be skinnier than that? In the country, they're looking at her like, no, you're not. You need to eat, girl. Like you look like you're hungry. So it is one of those interesting. I did have a reader who made a whole comment about it, which I thought was adorable in terms of like body image and what do we consider to be sexy. My thing has always been like we don't ever see those commercials on TV. We're like, hey, send these kids some money because they're hungry. Nobody ever says like, that woman looks amazing when you see her ribs. So something to think about. We're just going to continue with that because as you can tell, Angela's not having a good day in any form or shape. Here we are. Let's see. Mimi, you make it sound like Joyce doesn't cater every event every day. Ethel shook her head. The ladies were vicious today. I've gotten them more fired up than they usually were. It's chicken spaghetti. You know it's going to be good. Mimi gave me a shove and pushed me out of the chair. I made my way slowly towards the kitchen, staring down at the floor to avoid making eye contact with everyone. You have been a great plan until I bump into someone because I couldn't see my surroundings. I'm sorry, I mumble as I look into the most gorgeous pair of brown eyes I've seen in a long time. It took me a minute to recognize him as James Brooks, the county judge. James stood at about 6'2" and still in great shape for a man entering his 50s. But next to him, I fell short. He was also still had a full head of brown hair. Oh no, it's my fault for stopping in the middle of the walkway. How are you, Angela? James' eyes sparkled with like a kid who was some mischievous when he spoke. I'm good, thank you, I said in a soft voice, for he hadn't heard the conversation at our table. I heard about your divorce. I'm sorry, James said, and a sadness passed over his feature. James was a widower and the most eligible bachelor in the county. The last thing I needed was his pity. Life must be really slow in London if my divorce made it all the way to the county seat. I point. I said, trying to play it off to keep my dignity intact. I make it a point to keep up with the cases in my county, James said. And I'm sorry. If you ever need to talk, I'm here. I know how hard it is to lose someone after being together for so long. Divorce is still a loss. He lowered his voice so only I could hear him. Thank you. I mumbled as quickly as I could and waved goodbye. It was a good thing I was ending it all today. My self-esteem couldn't handle any more distractions. I finally made it to the serving area. The struggle to get there was almost non-existent, probably a blessing from being late. Miss Joyce and her team had prepared a feast for an army. My mouth watered as soon as the smells waved around me, making me realize it had been a few days since I actually had a proper meal. So I grabbed a plate, only to be stopped by Miss Joyce. Angela, dear, are you okay? Miss Joyce leaned in and asked me in a quiet voice. Even with her getting close, I still had to look up to meet her eyes, since she was taller than me by at least 4 inches. Miss Joyce was a legend in town. She was the first Black woman to start business back when segregation was only something talked about and not practiced. She was fearless. The sheer power of her conviction and her determination broke every barrier that anyone tried to put in front of her. No, not no was not an answer she ever accepted. It was no wonder Miss Joyce and my mother had become good friends. Their personality alone could set that rainforest on fire. When the two of them got together, it was hard to tell which one was the flame and which one was the gas. They just fed off each other. I'm fine, I replied softly. I know you aren't, but I won't push. Here, this is for your kids. She gave me a small goodie bag for the kids and handed me a large plate full of food for me. Tuna salad and an extra piece of pecan pie for you. She squeezed my hand and her touch was gentle. Honey, I know you're hurting, but the first step to recover is to forgive. Please, not you too. I heard that a million times already. Forgive and forget. My voice cracked as I worked hard to hold back the tears. Who said anything about forgetting? Don't you ever forget. Miss Joyce's voice was sharp and deep with frown lines on her face. You forgive the wrong that was done to you. Forgive yourself so you don't carry that guilt and shame. Then, when you're ready, make them all paid. Did you hear me? She stared hard at me, almost like she was trying to read my soul, and I had a feeling she could. Make them pay? I barely uttered the words. There'll be a day of reckoning. In the meantime, you show the asshole that the Barbie doll of his who is really in charge. Because I hardly even curse. Hearing Miss Joyce do it to curse caused a heat to creep into my cheeks. You nicknamed her Barbie doll? I asked, surprised apparent in the high-pitched tone of my voice. Honey, there's nothing real about that girl, she told me as she looked around the room. She's bleach blonde, her fake boobs and her butt implants. Barbie has more original parts than she does. She laughed at her own joke and I joined in. This too shall pass, right? I asked after my laughter stopped. Only if you let it, Miss Joyce replied and patted my cheeks. I headed back to the table with my kitty bag and plate of food. The ladies were all in deep conversation, what made me afraid to ask what they were talking about. What were you talking about with James Brooks? Mother asked, a little too giddy for my taste. Nothing really. The food. I replied as I started eating. That is one good looking man, Florence added from the side of her table. If I was 20 years younger, I'd be all over that. You should go for him, Angela. The minute those last words passed her lips, I choked, which had Mimi and Mother patting my back to save me. From death or embarrassment, I wasn't sure, I thought. I'm good, I finally said when the breathing returned to normal. I'll pass on that. I don't need another lawyer in my life. Remember how the last one turned out? I told the ladies as I lost my appetite. I think it's time for me to head home. But you just got here. You haven't even finished your food, Ethel said with big puppy eyes. I know, but I forgot to feed the cats and Miss Joyce just gave me food for them. I got up quickly as possible and pulled my goodie bag with me. Have a great day, everyone. I waved at the ladies. I love you, Mother. I told her as I leaned down and kissed her cheeks. Angela, are you okay? Mother asked, trying to get out from her chair. I'm fine, I said, but I knew she would see right through my lie. So I turned and almost ran out of the hall. I had to make sure her last memory of me was a good one, which made me a little glad that she called today. I got in my car as quickly as I could, not giving anyone the chance to stop me. The car was an old beat-down Honda, and I hated it. Todd took the Lexus in the divorce, claiming I wouldn't be able to afford it. He never mentioned the down payment for that thing came from my bank account. Tears had turned into a steady stream rolling down my face by the time I pulled away from the parking lot. It made anger curse through me. I never wanted to cry another tear for that man. So, my dear friends, that is chapter 2 of the Cat Lady special, by the way. So, from Cat Lady to Arms Dealer, all the things get together. And she does actually have a very revengeful day. So, if you enjoy some dark comedy, by the way, the darkest part is definitely book chapter 1 and 2. If you want to see what happens to the Silver Hair Gang, who they are, and what the boys do, come and hang out. In the meantime, I hope you guys have an amazing Saturday night. Constantine says hi. We're going to call it a day. It's been all sorts of tiring day. See if my hair steps in super curly. And hope you guys do amazing. Lots of love. Bye, everyone.